In April of 2013, a game warden set a motion-triggered trap near a summer camp in central Maine. He was looking for a thief. Someone had been breaking into cabins for years, stealing food, propane, books, and batteries. Always at night, always without a trace, and always without ever being seen. The trap was simple: a wire, a sensor, a camera. And on the night of April 4th, 2013, it went off. What the warden found the next morning wasn't what he expected. It wasn't a troubled teenager. It wasn't a drug addict or a desperate drifter. It was a man in his mid-50s, pale, thin, bearded, dressed in worn outdoor clothes, holding a bag of stolen food. And when they asked him his name, he told them, Christopher Thomas Knight. They ran the name, and what came back was something that made even the most seasoned investigators pause. Christopher Knight had not spoken to another human being, not one single person, in approximately 27 years. He had last been seen in 1986. He was 20 years old. He had driven his car to the edge of a forest in rural Maine, turned off the engine, left the keys inside, and walked away. No note, no goodbye, no reason. And for nearly 3 decades, while the world spun without him, Christopher Knight lived alone, in secret, in the woods. This is his story, and I have to warn you, by the time it's over, you may not look at your own life the same way. To understand what Christopher Knight did, you first have to understand what he left. He was born in 1965 in Albion, Maine, a small, rural town where nothing much happened and nothing much was expected. By all accounts, he was quiet, reserved, intelligent, but withdrawn. He had few close friends and little interest in the social rituals that occupied everyone around him. He graduated from high school with no particular fanfare, took a job installing home alarm systems, paid his taxes, did what was expected. And then, one day in 1986, something shifted. Nobody knows exactly what. There was no fight, no breakdown, no dramatic event that anyone could point to. His family never received a warning. His co-workers never noticed anything unusual. He simply got into his car, drove north, and kept driving. At some point on some nameless stretch of road, with pines pressing in on both sides, he pulled over. He has said, in the few interviews he has ever given, that he didn't plan it. That there was no checklist, no survival gear loaded in the trunk, no years of preparation. He just stopped, turned off the car, got out, and started walking into the trees. He didn't look back, and for 27 years, through blizzards and droughts, through the death of the Soviet Union and the birth of the internet, through September 11th and 2 decades of change that reshaped the entire modern world, Christopher Knight did not look back. The camp he eventually built was extraordinary in its ordinariness. He found a clearing in the remote woods near the North Pond area of Rome, Maine, a maze of lakes and summer cabins that sat empty for most of the year. He set up a tent, reinforced it with tarps, and arranged his stolen supplies with a kind of quiet discipline. This was not a man losing his mind. This was a man who had made a choice and was living it. His campsite was remarkably hard to find, not because he built anything elaborate, but because he moved within the forest with the patience of someone who had genuinely become part of it. He knew where every game warden traveled. He knew when the camps were occupied and when they were empty. He could vanish into the undergrowth at the first sound of a human voice. For 27 years, not one person found him. Not one. In winter, temperatures in central Maine regularly fall to 20, 30, sometimes 40 degrees below zero. Christopher Knight survived these winters, all 27 of them, with stolen propane heaters, layered clothing, and a technique he developed himself. he would not allow himself to sleep deeply in the coldest months, because deep sleep in extreme cold can kill you. So he would sit in the dark and enter a kind of half-sleep, resting but aware, present but still, hour after hour, night after night, alone. When asked later if he was ever afraid, Christopher Knight said something that has stayed with me since I first read it. He said, "I was never afraid. I was never lonely. I had books." Books he stole from the cabins. History, philosophy, literary fiction. He read voraciously, in silence, by the light of a battery-powered lamp, consuming thousands of pages over the decades. He knew more about the Civil War than most historians. He did not see himself as a man hiding from the world. He saw himself as a man who had simply left it. To survive, he stole. There is no other word for it, and Christopher Knight himself never tried to soften it. He burglarized over 1,000 cabins in the course of 27 years. He took food, primarily, canned goods, dried pasta, peanut butter, enough to survive, never more. He left cash and valuables untouched. He took propane tanks when his ran low. He took books, batteries, occasionally clothing. He was always careful, always quiet, always left the cabins as undisturbed as possible. And yet, for the families who owned those camps, his presence became something else entirely, something that lived in the dark edges of their summer world, a ghost. Families began locking their doors differently. Parents told children not to wander too far from the cabins at night. Some people stopped going to their summer places altogether. For them, the North Pond Hermit, as he came to be known, was not a man making a private choice. He was a threat, a shadow that moved through their world and left a cold feeling behind. And Christopher Knight, sitting alone in the dark, reading Dostoevsky, knew none of this. He had no way to know. He had no contact with the world outside. Not one conversation, not one letter, not one phone call, for 27 years. Think about that for a moment. Not 27 days, not 27 weeks, 27 years. The Berlin Wall fell. The internet was born. A generation of children grew up, graduated from college, started families. And Christopher Knight sat in the Maine woods, alone, reading by lamplight, surviving winter after winter after winter, while time, the world's time, moved on without him. Terry Hughes, the game warden who set the trap, had been chasing the North Pond Hermit for years. He had studied the break-ins, mapped them, looked for patterns, and eventually he narrowed down the location. The trap was simple: motion sensor, camera. On the night of April 4th, 2013, Christopher Knight tripped it. He was caught the following morning, calm, almost resigned, standing near a camp building with a bag of food. He offered no resistance. He did not run. He simply looked at the warden and, when asked his name, said it, clearly, quietly: Christopher Thomas Knight.
At the county jail, he was processed, photographed, and placed in a cell. His first conversation with a human being in 27 years was with a jail officer doing intake paperwork. He was asked standard questions: name, date of birth, address. For address, he said, "I don't have one." When a reporter later asked him what it was like to suddenly be back in the world, surrounded by people, noise, fluorescent lights, bureaucracy, he said something I have never forgotten. He said, "I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm sorry for the people I hurt." He meant the families, the cabin owners. He meant the people who had lived in quiet fear of him for decades, without ever knowing that the shadow in their woods was simply a man, a quiet, bookish, solitary man who had made a choice they couldn't understand. The journalist Michael Finkel spent years corresponding with Christopher Knight, writing letters, visiting him in jail, trying to understand. And what emerged from those conversations was not the portrait of a madman. It was the portrait of someone who had found something most of us spend our entire lives searching for: silence. True, complete, uninterrupted silence. No performance, no social anxiety, no expectations, no career ladder, no identity to protect or maintain. Just the forest, the seasons, the books, the cold, and himself. When Finkel asked him whether he had been happy, whether the 27 years had been worth it, Christopher Knight paused for a long time, and then he said, "I think I was at peace." At peace, not happy, not satisfied, not proud, at peace. There is something in that word, in the way he chose it, that cuts through everything. Because how many of us, surrounded by every comfort the modern world can offer, connected to everyone we've ever known, drowning in content and conversation and noise, how many of us can say that? Christopher Knight was eventually released from jail. He served time, completed community service, and returned to the world. He lives quietly now. He has not gone back to the forest, but by all accounts, he has not re-entered the world either. Not really. He exists, as he always has, in a space between, present but elsewhere. I've been thinking about Christopher Knight for a long time. Not because his story is a blueprint, not because I think what he did was right or good or something to aspire, but because of what his story reveals about the rest of us. We live in a world of almost unbearable noise, of constant connection, of notifications and opinions, and the relentless pressure to be seen, to be productive, to be someone. And somewhere deep in the woods of Maine, for 27 winters, a man found a way to simply be. No audience, no legacy, no documentation, just silence and peace. I don't know what that says about the world he left, but I think I know what it says about how hard it is, truly, genuinely hard, to find that kind of quiet inside the life most of us are living. Christopher Knight didn't break. He just stepped off the edge and fell very slowly into stillness. If this story moved you, I'd genuinely love to know what you took from it. Leave a comment below. And if you want more stories like this one, the forgotten ones, the quiet ones, the ones history almost missed, you know where to find them.